Have you ever wondered why people often sabotage their own happiness, even when freedom is within reach? What drives a human being to reject light and remain in darkness, even when the exit door is wide open? Imagine a society where people voluntarily choose chains instead of wings, comfort instead of truth. Could it be that the greatest prisons are not built with iron, but with invisible ideas we choose to believe? Many walk the streets smiling, but deep inside they feel like strangers to their own lives. Have you noticed how sometimes success feels like failure because it empties the soul instead of filling it? People often fear silence because silence forces them to face the loud voice of their own conscience. Isn't it paradoxical that in a world filled with noise, loneliness has never been so loud and suffocating? The shadows we fear outside are often smaller than the shadows we carry within ourselves. Why do we crave approval from others, yet despise ourselves when no one is watching? The underground of the human soul is a place few dare to enter, yet all of us secretly inhabit. What if your greatest enemy is not society, not circumstance, but your own fragmented inner voice? Many people escape into distractions, yet each escape only deepens the void they wanted to avoid. Do you recognize how easy it is to blame the world, but how rare it is to face our own responsibility? Could it be that true rebellion is not against governments or systems, but against our own self-deception? Have you realized that the strongest chains are those we forge ourselves through guilt, shame, and fear? In every human heart lies a conflict, the longing to be free and the comfort of being controlled. This paradox creates an underground reality that most people never dare to confess. You are not alone in this struggle. The hidden depths of your heart are shared by countless others, and it was Dostoevsky who unveiled this raw truth in his Notes from Underground, a shadow that still hangs over modern society. To understand the underground of the human soul, one must first admit that society itself thrives on illusions. People decorate their lives with superficial success, yet tremble in silence when confronted with emptiness. The pursuit of status often hides the deep fear of irrelevance that gnaws at the modern heart. We work tirelessly to be seen, yet dread the possibility of truly being known for who we are. The underground is born when a person realizes that recognition cannot fill the abyss of their being. Instead of confronting this abyss, many build masks so perfect they eventually forget their own faces. Like actors trapped in endless performances, people lose the boundary between role and identity. Society applauds the mask, but despises the awkward honesty of a soul refusing to play the script. The underground man chooses isolation, not because he hates people, but because he sees through their charades. Yet this clarity is both a gift and a curse, for truth often burns more than it illuminates. In modern cities, the underground is not a physical place, but a mental prison of overthinking and paralysis. Technology amplifies this condition, offering endless escape while chaining us deeper to emptiness. The underground grows when comfort replaces courage and pleasure replaces purpose. When a person avoids pain at all costs, they also avoid the transformation that pain could have brought. Shadows are comfortable because they hide flaws, but they also suffocate the possibility of growth. People laugh at philosophers, yet unknowingly act out the very contradictions philosophers warned them about. To reject meaning is easier than to embrace responsibility, and so the underground becomes a sanctuary of excuses. The underground man whispers in all of us, "Better to rot in the dark than risk failing in the light." This paradox reveals how human beings can be simultaneously proud and self-destructive without realizing it. And so, the underground remains alive in every modern soul that fears freedom more than oppression. Modern society disguises its underground not with darkness but with neon lights, distractions, and endless noise. People drown in entertainment, mistaking constant stimulation for genuine fulfillment of the soul. The underground man laughs bitterly at this, for he knows silence terrifies those addicted to noise. We scroll endlessly through screens, not to connect, but to escape the unbearable weight of self-reflection. Yet every attempt to flee from ourselves only makes the confrontation harsher when silence finally comes. The underground is not just despair, it is also the awareness of how easily people betray themselves. To deny responsibility They blame governments, religions, and cultures, while ignoring the mirror before them. This mirror is merciless, for it reflects not only our desires, but also our cowardice and hypocrisy. The underground whispers, "Look closer, you are not who you pretend to be, and you know it." People often fear this voice because it strips away illusions they have spent years carefully building. So they choose external validation over inner truth, even when it corrodes their identity slowly. The irony is that in seeking approval, they give away their freedom, becoming slaves of applause. The underground man mocks this dependence, for he sees that clapping hands often hide empty hearts. What is celebrated today may be ridiculed tomorrow, leaving the seeker of approval broken and lost. To be free, one must dare to live without constant reassurance, yet few are willing to risk it. Society offers comfort for obedience, but isolation for authenticity, and this frightens most people. The underground grows in this tension, the desire to be real versus the fear of rejection. Thus, the modern man often chooses the mask, because masks rarely get punished for honesty. But every mask adds another brick to the wall, separating him from his authentic existence. In the end, the underground thrives not because society demands lies, but because individuals prefer them. The underground man represents the terrifying freedom of seeing through illusions without finding a clear alternative. He exposes the emptiness of human motives, revealing that pride and spite often masquerade as morality. How often do people claim noble reasons for their actions, when in truth they seek power or control? The underground unmasks this, showing that self-deception is more dangerous than deception from others. It is easier to accuse the world of injustice than to face our own selfish desires honestly. The underground man whispers, "You sabotage yourself not because you are weak, but because you fear change." This paradox reveals that humans often prefer predictable misery over uncertain freedom. Many cling to suffering because it is familiar, while freedom feels unbearably heavy to carry. Freedom demands responsibility, and responsibility forces us to accept that excuses no longer protect us. Thus, the underground becomes a refuge where excuses are polished into philosophical justifications. People convince themselves that society is corrupt, therefore they cannot be blamed for their stagnation. Yet in doing so, they exchange growth for bitterness and truth for endless rationalizations. Dostoevsky understood that resentment is a poison the underground man drinks, hoping others will die first. But the poison only corrodes his own soul, leaving him hollow and incapable of genuine connection. Modern society mirrors this, as resentment festers in online spaces where anonymity feeds hidden rage. Behind every angry post may lie a soul too afraid to confront its own fragile identity. The underground is not only an individual problem, but a collective shadow haunting our civilization. It grows wherever people choose comfort over responsibility, complaint over action, illusion over truth. Each person carries a piece of this underground, whether they admit it or bury it in silence. And the real challenge is not to deny it, but to face it bravely and transform it into growth. The underground reveals a paradox. Man craves both absolute freedom and absolute certainty, though they cannot coexist. In chasing certainty, people submit to systems, ideologies, and authorities that promise safety, but demand obedience. Yet when freedom is offered, the same people tremble, for freedom strips away excuses and protections. Thus, the underground grows in the tension between desire for liberty and fear of responsibility. Many say they want independence, yet they secretly yearn for someone else to carry the burden of choice. This contradiction creates a silent despair, for no master can satisfy a soul that secretly longs to be free. At the same time, no freedom can satisfy a soul terrified of owning the consequences of its decisions. The underground man embodies this contradiction, mocking both authority and liberty as traps of the human spirit. In modern life, this paradox appears in our demand for rights without the willingness to accept duties. People demand to be heard, yet refuse to listen deeply to the voices within themselves. They claim to be victims of circumstance, yet rebel when reminded of their own responsibility. This cycle creates an endless spiral where freedom becomes a burden and obedience a prison. Kierkegaard once warned that anxiety springs from the dizziness of freedom, and the underground illustrates this vividly. The more choices modern society provides, the more paralyzed individuals feel, drowning in indecision. Freedom without inner clarity becomes chaos, while certainty without freedom becomes tyranny of the soul. The underground man laughs bitterly, knowing humanity constantly swings between these two extremes. Yet the lesson hidden here is that true freedom is not external, but an inner stance toward life. To embrace freedom means to accept risk, to embrace uncertainty, and to bear responsibility without complaint. The shadow over society deepens because few are willing to pay the price of authentic freedom. And so the underground thrives, for as long as people fear the cost of freedom, they will remain chained. The underground exposes the fragility of human pride, for beneath confidence often lies insecurity disguised as strength. People project certainty outwardly, yet inside they wrestle with doubts they cannot admit even to themselves. This gap between appearance and reality widens into a chasm that swallows authenticity and truth. Society rewards masks of competence, but punishes the honesty of admitting confusion or vulnerability. Thus, individuals hide their wounds, even though wounds left unseen often fester into silent despair. The underground man recognizes this hypocrisy and mocks the facade of strength society so highly values. He knows that much of what we call achievement is simply fear in costume, parading as ambition. People climb ladders not always to reach heights, but to escape the terror of remaining unseen. Yet each rung climbed without authenticity adds weight, for success built on lies collapses in silence. Modern culture glorifies productivity, but rarely asks whether the soul thrives beneath the surface of success. The underground whispers, "What good is victory if you lose yourself in the process of winning?" Pride becomes a fragile armor, shattering at the slightest touch of rejection or criticism. The deeper the insecurity, the louder the performance, as if noise could silence inner emptiness. Social media magnifies this tragedy as people curate perfection while drowning in hidden dissatisfaction. Comparison becomes a poison, slowly eroding joy, leaving only resentment and self-contempt behind. The underground man laughs, not out of joy but out of bitter recognition of humanity's self-deception. He shows us that the quest for approval is less about others and more about avoiding the self. True freedom requires shedding pride's mask and facing the terrifying honesty of imperfection. Few dare to do this, for authenticity invites ridicule, while falsehood secures applause. And so, the shadow of pride continues to darken modern society, feeding the underground within us all. The underground also reveals how resentment becomes a secret companion, whispering bitterness into every human thought. Resentment feeds on comparisons, convincing us that others are the reason for our own dissatisfaction. People envy success, but rarely see the silent suffering hidden behind the glitter of achievement. Envy transforms admiration into poison, turning every victory of others into a personal defeat. The underground man recognizes this disease, mocking how humanity builds its identity on resentment. Instead of striving for growth, people obsess over leveling others down to feel less small. This envy is not just personal, it spreads socially, infecting entire cultures with silent hostility. Modern society thrives on resentment, feeding outrage and division through politics, media, and virtual spaces. The underground grows stronger in this climate because bitterness feels easier than responsibility. Responsibility requires action, but resentment requires nothing more than pointing fingers from the shadows. Yet resentment never heals. It corrodes silently, eating away at joy until only emptiness remains. The underground man sneers at this, for he knows resentment is a prison willingly embraced. To resent is to surrender power, to hand control of your emotions to those you despise. Freedom demands letting go of resentment, but freedom terrifies those addicted to blame. So they cling to anger, for anger feels powerful even as it destroys the one who holds it. Dostoevsky shows us that resentment is not strength but weakness, masquerading as righteous indignation. The underground teaches that true liberation comes when you stop seeking revenge and embrace responsibility. To forgive is not to excuse, but to release yourself from the chains of another's shadow. Few are willing to take this path, for resentment gives the illusion of control while stealing peace. And so resentment remains one of the darkest fuels of the underground, keeping society trapped in shadow. The underground also exposes humanity's addiction to comfort, a subtle poison that erodes the will to grow. People crave convenience so deeply that they sacrifice meaning for ease, never questioning the hidden cost. Comfort dulls the spirit, turning the hunger for transcendence into a quiet appetite for entertainment. The underground man sees this as tragedy, a soul willing to trade purpose for temporary pleasure. Modern society feeds this addiction, offering constant distractions to keep individuals docile and passive. Yet every comfort accepted without thought is another chain wrapped silently around the human will. Greatness has never been born in comfort. It emerges from struggle, pain, and the refusal to settle. Comfort whispers sweetly, promising peace, but delivers only stagnation and the slow death of ambition. The underground thrives here, for laziness disguised as contentment blinds people to their own decay. People defend their comfort zones fiercely, even when those zones are prisons disguised as safety. The man underground mocks this cowardice, knowing that true life exists only beyond the familiar walls. Comfort makes rebellion rare, for why risk suffering when pleasure is so easy and immediate? Yet this avoidance of suffering breeds despair, the quiet hopelessness of a life never fully lived. The underground whispers, better to suffer with purpose than to live comfortably in emptiness. But few heed this call, preferring distraction over the sharp honesty of transformation. Comfort, like a narcotic, soothes the pain while slowly numbing the desire for authenticity. And once numbed, individuals become easy to control, for those addicted to ease rarely resist authority. Dostoevsky warned us that such passivity creates a fertile ground for tyranny and manipulation. The shadow over society deepens when comfort is mistaken for happiness and ease for fulfillment. And so, the underground thrives, fed not only by pain, but also by the silent decay of comfort. The underground reveals that human beings often fear truth more than lies, because truth demands transformation. Lies provide comfort, soft illusions that allow us to remain passive, even while our souls starve silently. People cling to false narratives, not because they believe them, but because reality feels unbearable. The underground man understands this, sneering at society's desperate attempts to paint darkness as light. Modern culture thrives on these illusions, marketing happiness while disguising emptiness beneath the surface. Advertisements promise meaning through possessions, but objects cannot heal the fractures of the human heart. Politicians promise salvation through power, but no authority can resolve the contradictions of the soul. Religion itself, when corrupted, can become another illusion that blinds rather than enlightens. The underground grows stronger each time people choose illusion over the terrifying honesty of truth. Truth demands sacrifice, the painful dismantling of comfort and false identities we have built. Few are willing to pay this price, preferring a shallow peace over deep transformation. The underground man sees clearly, but clarity often feels like a curse rather than a gift. To know the truth is to carry a burden that most people cannot bear without trembling. Yet without this burden, no authentic life is possible, only endless repetition of falsehoods. The shadow of society deepens as individuals choose blindness willingly, mistaking ignorance for bliss. The underground whispers, better a painful truth than a sweet lie that rots the soul. But society mocks truth-tellers, for they expose wounds everyone prefers to hide beneath shallow smiles. This resistance to truth sustains the underground, keeping people trapped in cycles of denial. Only those who embrace truth, however brutal, can rise above the shadows into authentic freedom. And so, the underground lives on, not because truth is absent, but because people fear to face it. The underground also exposes the human obsession with control, the desperate urge to dominate what cannot be tamed. People design systems, rules, and technologies to master life, yet life resists every attempt to be contained. This illusion of control comforts the ego, but secretly deepens the fear of chaos and unpredictability. The underground man mocks this, knowing that control is a fragile mask easily shattered by fate. Modern society worships control through data, surveillance, and endless predictions of the future. Yet no algorithm can solve the riddle of the human heart or the contradictions of existence. The desire for control blinds us to the beauty of uncertainty, which is the birthplace of growth. People fear uncertainty because it exposes their vulnerability, yet vulnerability is the essence of being alive. To live authentically is to accept that nothing is fully controllable, not even our own thoughts. The underground thrives where control collapses, revealing the chaos we tried so hard to silence. Attempts to dominate others often end in resentment, for power corrupts both ruler and ruled alike. Families, nations, and institutions repeat this cycle, clinging to control while decaying from within. The underground man whispers, "Your need for control enslaves you more than chaos ever could." Control seduces with promises of security, but delivers anxiety, rigidity, and spiritual paralysis. Those who cling too tightly to control cannot love, for love demands risk and surrender. They cannot create, for creativity is born in the unpredictable dance of chaos and order. To let go of control is to embrace the unknown, and only there does true freedom begin. Society resists this because freedom without control terrifies those addicted to certainty. And so humanity remains chained not by fate, but by its obsession with mastering the uncontrollable. The underground grows darker because people would rather live enslaved by control than freed by uncertainty. The underground ultimately reveals humanity's deepest fear, not death, not suffering, but the terror of true freedom. People long for freedom in words, but tremble when they realize freedom strips away every excuse and illusion. To be free is to stand naked before existence, without guarantees, without certainty, and without escape. Most would rather remain in chains than carry the heavy responsibility of authentic choice. The underground man sees this clearly, mocking society's cries for liberty while it secretly clings to servitude. Freedom is frightening because it means no one else can be blamed for the direction of your life. The modern man hides from this reality, building layers of distraction to avoid facing himself. Entertainment, politics, religion, and even relationships can become shields against the raw weight of freedom, yet shields eventually crack, revealing the emptiness they were designed to conceal. Dostoevsky understood that freedom is both a gift and a burden, a flame that can illuminate or burn. To embrace it fully is to accept suffering, uncertainty, and responsibility as companions of the soul. Few dare to do this, for it is easier to blame fate or society than to own one's choices. But without this acceptance, life becomes a series of shallow gestures without real meaning. The underground man whispers, "Better the darkness of truth than the comfort of false freedom." Modern society avoids this truth, preferring the illusion of freedom packaged as consumer choice. Yet to choose between brands is not to choose authentically. It is only to rearrange illusions. Authentic freedom demands sacrifice, and sacrifice is the language few are willing to speak. Those who embrace it discover a strength unknown to those who cling to illusions of control. In the end, freedom cannot be given or taken. It must be seized in the depths of the self. And this is the shadow Dostoevsky left us, the haunting reminder that most people fear freedom more than chains. Remember that the underground is not just a story in a book, but a living reality inside each of us today. You carry both the chains and the key, and the choice to live free or enslaved begins within your own thoughts. True freedom does not come from society, but from the courage to face yourself without excuses or masks. The world will always tempt you with illusions, but the responsibility of authenticity remains only yours to accept. Every moment you choose truth over lies, you weaken the shadows that have silently ruled your life. Do not wait for society to change. Transformation begins the instant you dare to change yourself. The underground whispers of despair, but your heart carries a voice of hope stronger than any shadow. Pain, fear, and anxiety do not exist to destroy you, but to shape you into someone capable of real depth. Freedom is terrifying, yes, but only because it strips away illusions and reveals your infinite possibilities. You are not defined by resentment, masks, or envy, unless you decide to remain chained to them. Real courage is not conquering others, but conquering the hidden underground that lives within you. When you dare to stand alone, you discover that you were never truly alone. Strength has always walked beside you. The world outside may be chaotic, but the fortress you build inside cannot be broken by any voice or opinion. Seek not perfection, but authenticity, for only authenticity can give you peace that no one can steal. The shadow of modern society fades when individuals choose responsibility instead of excuses, truth instead of lies. Ask yourself, which underground still holds you prisoner, and what light are you afraid to step into? Every choice you make today shapes the society of tomorrow. Your authenticity becomes an act of rebellion. Do not underestimate your influence. Even one soul that chooses truth can inspire countless others to rise. Share in the comments, where are you listening from, and which truth in this reflection touched you most deeply? And as this video ends, allow yourself to continue the journey. Watch the next video now appearing on your screen, for transformation never stops.